Doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. You can come and you can learn these trades. It doesn't take 9 years of school. You don't need to go into debt to do it. There are plenty of amazing contractors who have on-the-job training. That's facts right there. If the company you're applying for doesn't have it, go find a company who does. There's a pathway to prosperity here for everyone.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your host, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again and looking forward to a motivational and excellent episode. This time, we are bringing Kathryn Howard to the show, and she's going to be bringing some fire for you to get you motivated and amped up on a Monday morning or whenever you're listening to this podcast. Either way, it's going to be a great time, and we are looking forward to hearing from her. And before we do that, we're going to spend a little bit of time introducing the concepts for you ourselves. And we're going to start that off with a quote from Brian.
Success is a few simple disciplines exercised every day. Failure is a few simple mistakes repeated every day. Jim Rohn. Now brace yourself. I'm using a Jim Rohn quote this time.
I'm shocked. I've never heard of such a man. It's a good one. I like it.
Dude, that quote gave me goosebumps, man. I mean, literally. So I heard it in it was an audiobook or YouTube
cassette tape
lecture of his, probably the first time on a cassette tape for sure, back in the early 2000s. But this time it was a YouTube video or an audiobook or something I was listening to by him in the shower. So I did what I do, which is like, oh my gosh, that was just so good. And he didn't even say it like a quote, he was just talking. But this is the stuff that just flies out of his mouth just periodically. It's like, he was just amazing. It was so good that I just tapped the backup button on my phone and I dropped the screen down and hit the screen record and then let it play through and then wiped the water off my screen and then hit the stop button. And then later on, I look at my photo reels. I'm listening to audiobooks and podcasts stuff all the time. And I just screenshot, places that I need to get back to. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's right. And I just opened up my notepad on my phone and jotted the quote down and boom, here we are. But man, success is a few simple disciplines exercised every day, and failure is a few simple mistakes repeated every day.
Yeah, that's the key right there, right?
Yeah, you fall into the habit of mistakes and living a crappy life or being a crappy, where am I working the hardest right now and where I'm crappy? Being a crappy husband is probably the area of my life that is taking the most work right now because it's an area of my life that I neglected the most over the 23 years I've been with my wife. I didn't become as good a husband as I became a leader, a speaker, an objection handler, like a podcaster, not even close. So now I'm finding those mistakes, cutting them out and adding in disciplines because this is what it takes. So why aren't you the best version of yourself and pick the category in communication? Well, because when you enter into a conversation with someone, you repeat a bunch of mistakes that have become habits over the years. How do you get rid of that? How do you become an expert communicator? You start cutting those mistakes out and you add in disciplines that you have to force yourself to do in the beginning until those becomes habits. I didn't even press play after I clipped that thing. I just said, I'm just going to spend some time on this because I really needed it. It was perfect for me at that moment. And hopefully it works the same way for you in the driver's seat with us here. And it got me thinking about Edward C. Banfield. And I talked about this on Wiser Wednesday. This would have been, as we're recording this, end of October. It was Phil Falasky's Wiser Wednesday that we did this morning. And Edward C. Banfield wrote deeply and heavily about the difference in socioeconomic statuses. So the bottom rung of the socioeconomic ladder, which would be not just the poor people, but real loser failures, not people who were born poor and haven't quite figured their way out of it, that kind of thing. Or, a mother of 6 who lost her husband suddenly in an economic downturn and, but like losers. And who did he consider the loser? The worst person at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder was the addict. And boy, let me tell you, it's dead on. I lost everything to addiction. We had to start over from addiction. And the biggest delineating factor he found between the people at the lowest end of the socioeconomic ladder and the highest end, which he considered like your third generation multi-millionaire, not just because you were born into the money, but someone who's a third generation, but grew the empire. Now, we hear the stories all the time because they're way more common about someone who's born into money and squanders it, or it never moves, or just, inflation takes it. But the people who are born into money and then figure out how to discipline themselves to actually explode the empire and not lose it, that takes a lot. But that's what he considered, just purely by research, the highest end of the socioeconomic ladder. Biggest delineating factor, the biggest thing that separates the two. On the bottom, you think about what is good for me right now. What is the quickest way to me feeling happy, feeling better right now? Short time perspective. And the people at the highest end, and then every step up that ladder in between, the one thing he saw more of was long-term perspective, an ability to
delayed gratification.
Yep. It's long-time perspective. So I'm not doing something that's good for me today. Just take this morning, man. This morning, probably 3:42 this morning, my eyes opened, and now it's like it's getting light later in the morning. So it's changing so fast here at the end of October that I can't really tell what time it is by looking out my window. I hate that. Like, I like when we're deep into the season and I can just look out the window anytime, day or night, and kind of know what time it is, But I look out the window and I'm like, I don't know if I'm a little early or if my alarm's off. Like, Wiser Wednesday starts in 6 minutes. Like, I have no idea. Why does the sun play tricks on me this time of year? But it was 3:42 and my alarm goes off at 3:45. I looked at the phone and, you get that thought, just turn this thing off, reset it for 5 o'clock. You know how many years I've been getting up and going to the gym? It's been since 2012. And still, this morning, it was like, turn this thing off, go back to sleep. Millie and I have been trying to walk in the mornings before the gym. We're really kind of cutting into my gym time, but it's all right. It's good. But that's what would feel the best right now. And hey, one day of skipping, missing, whatever, it's not going to change really anything. Or is it? How many one times do I have before I've created a new habit? So long-time perspective would mean I go, no, I'm not doing what's the best for me right now. I'm doing what's the best for me ultimately. And what's best for me ultimately, and my wife and my kids and my team here in Phoenix, and the people listening to this show, and the people that are here my Wiser Wednesdays, and the people that watch my TikTok videos, or everything. The best thing possible for everyone long-term that I impact is that I get my carcass off this bed and go hit the gym. And I'm just a better person the rest of the day. And I will live longer. And, I should live longer, just from pure health standard. I should live longer and I'll be healthier and I'll enjoy my retirement years, or I'll probably never retire, but my older years more, and I'll be healthier and I'll get around better and I'll cost the family less in medical expenses. Like, is there no care for that? I'm 150 pounds overweight and nobody's ever going to pay a price for this. No, you get rid of it. We got stuff to do, man. Let's go. Get up, get to working out, take the long-term perspective. And so we're talking about finances because it was socioeconomic. It was where you fall in like net worth or whatever. But realistically, we should be making moves that are good for our kids and their kids and their kids, right? That's long-term perspective. But he was talking about it in every way. He could go to neighborhoods, and he wrote extensively about this. And it's a very touchy subject, even though this was probably written in the 40s and 50s. But even today, like Rudy Giuliani's stop and frisk thing that was implemented in New York, it's a highly political, it's a minefield we're dancing in right now. He could go to neighborhoods and find higher or lower crime rates based on how much the society took what feels good right now versus what's good long term into play or into consideration. So the winner versus loser thing is ripe with how long your perspective is. So what am I doing? What did Dennis Waitley say? One of my favorite quotes all time. Winners do what is goal achieving. Losers do what is tension relieving. Yeah. And tension relieving almost always means what feels best to me right here, right now. And my team, with Wiser Wednesday, we moved this into the review realm because it was like everybody is here to work to make money, right? That's your first and foremost. The reason you leave your family is to get paid, hopefully, to bring home the bacon. But the people who are really going hard after reviews, to me, like, yes, we all love when somebody writes us a quick review and says how great we were. That's awesome. And it hits Google or wherever, Facebook, and everybody sees it. And you're like, that's cool. That lasts about 3 seconds. But if you're really going after reviews, like it's very important to you, I see you as taking a long time perspective because we're all going to hit a shoulder season again. For plumbers in Arizona area, it is the summer. That is our slow season. A lot of people leave for the heat and the population dies down and there's just a lot less work to go around. But imagine the difference in the person who does not get reviews, tries to take care of their customer, yet it's all fine and great, does decent revenue and, everybody loves them, versus the person who's ferociously going after, hey, will you do me a favor? If you really enjoyed my service, can you write me a Google review? Oh, this was so great. Hey, would you also mind, and if it's too much to ask, please say so. Would it be impossible to get you to take a picture with me next to my truck and post it on Facebook or whatever social media you have and tag us in it? Like, this sounds like a bridge too far, but every time I run a contest, as you know, because we did it in Lancaster, we get hundreds of them. It's crazy.
Yes, sir.
We get guys with videos with people's kids, people's pets. We get the dog is on the shoulder in front of the truck and the lady baked me cookies and thank you, Susan. And like all these, they get crazy. They just have a good time with them. And how much time does it take? An extra minute, 2 minutes? And the bond that you build with that customer is significantly more than if you hadn't. But again, this is something that you look at the people who are really doing this and you go, when everyone else is slow in the shoulder season 2 years from now, does this lady have more work or less work than everybody else? When all of your customers have been posting Facebook pictures with you and their network sees it. And then all of a sudden, imagine this, you get one of their friends, even if it's accidentally, and all of a sudden, this network of people is seeing it from 2 different people they know. That if you want great tasting water, you get Nate to your house, right? If you want the cleanest air possible, you get Brian over. That's the kind of thing that happens, but you have to take a long time perspective because getting a video or picture post review, it doesn't pay off today, tomorrow. Doing it 3 times a day for 2 years, there's a massive payoff. You really got to take the higher end of the socioeconomic mindset. This is the mindset you have to take to do these kinds of things and make them part of your every single day process. You do these every day, no matter what. This is what you do. So you're still responsible for every other part of your job. But now you're adding this to it. Not because somebody made you or because there's a contest, because it's good for you. It's good for your team. It's good for the company. You might say, but what if I do all this in front of this Nate's heating an air truck and then 6 months from now I leave or get fired? So what? It's you in the pic in the video. So start doing it at the next company. It's already part of your process. So keep doing it. You're getting your name out there. Have them say your name. Who cares? Just do it. It's good for you. That's why.
That's a good word, Brian. I'm just reflecting upon how you said that you're a better podcaster than husband. Lord have mercy on Amelia. That's
Did I say better podcaster than husband?
You sure did. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's anyways, moving on from that. No, I agree with you, Brian. And delayed gratification is just so contrary to the modern age. I mean, in everything from cell phones to TV to on demand to this, that, and whatever. Like, The world has pushed us into a place of instant gratification. Amazon does single day shipping. Sometimes it's like within a couple hours shipping, meaning that you don't have to wait for it anymore.
Everything in life, though, like if you get hungry, you eat, you feel better. That's just all there is to it. Right now, I'm doing 20-hour fast where I'm only eating for 4 hours a day. And the biggest reason I'm doing it is because I hate it, especially those last 4 hours of that window. I hate it. But man, there's just something about it. Every time I'm doing something like this where I'm beating the living crap out of myself, beating myself into submission, if I stopped it today, 6 months from now, I would look back on this time that I was doing it and go, yeah, you're killing it then. You're really mastering it then. So I just get right back to it and let's do it some more.
That's a great place to start here, Brian. And we're looking forward to continuing that message and even more so as we talk about what it means to believe in yourself. And I think that's a 1-2 combo punch there that could really take you very far if you are willing to sacrifice for the greater, larger future. And also, if you believe in your ability and your worth to get there, you are indeed going to go far. And I think Kathryn's going to continue that message for us here in just a moment. Before we get to that, though, it's time to highlight one of our special reviewers, Brian. And we love this part of the show because it means so much to us that this show means so much to you. And we thank you for taking an hour and a half out of your week to actually spend it with us and the amazing guests that share their knowledge. We appreciate not only you spending the time with us, but the choices that you are making to do that are playing out in the application that happens after the show. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for leaving your feedback, your reviews. We love it, and we appreciate you taking the time to do it. Brian, who are we highlighting today?
Better. 5 stars. Thank you so much for having this podcast. The variety of guests, yet perfectly crafted for the trades. I am better. My electricians are better. And my business is better. Thank you. Ben Gordon, Mr. Sparky of Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. Mr. Sparky up in the house.
Yeah, you know Ben Gordon, right? Oh, yeah, this is embarrassing. You sure do.
Names are not my strong suit, Brian, as you well know.
If you saw him and his wife, Trisha, you would know them 100%.
Awesome. That's great, man.
Met him at an Authority Brands convention. No big deal. I remember everybody because I'm just a better person than Nate. That's all there is to it.
That's probably accurate.
Even if they are from Ohio. I'm not going to hold that against them.
Well, Ben, we appreciate you taking some time to leave a review, man.
Yeah, buddy. Ben's running an awesome business in Dayton. Pretty new to Mr. Sparky, and Ben and Trisha are kicking butt. So we appreciate you listening to the show, buddy. He actually said recently, nice to see you doing some more stuff for the Sparkies. I don't remember what that was relating to, but what was that for? I don't remember. Yeah. Good to hear from you, buddy. He left this review in April, so we don't know if he still listens to the show. Probably
not. So we can only say dozens and dozens. We've dropped out of that 36 category.
Yeah, almost made 36, but there go Trish and Gordon.
All right. Well, we're excited for the review, and we are excited to bring Kathryn Howard to you to talk to you about knowing your worth. And that's what we're going to do right now we put Kathryn Howard in your passenger seat. Our guest today is Kathryn Howard. She has worked in the call center, served as an HVAC service manager, and gained experience in the field with sales. Earlier this year of 2024, she took over Lee's, leading the company to extraordinary growth. In 2025, the company plans to go to market, after which Kathryn will continue her mission of providing a pathway to prosperity for anyone willing to show up and work hard in the trades. She believes that regardless of gender, race, or country of origin, that anyone can succeed in the trades. That is a message we love, and we are excited to bring somebody who loves bringing that message to you. Welcome here, Kathryn.
Hey there. I'm super excited to be here. The title of your podcast, Waste No Day, is like my mantra every single day. Like there's no days to waste. So I'm ready to go.
Heck yeah. It does tend to be coming from a background, childhood like mine, like yours. Not so much like Nate's, but he's getting there. Where every freaking day was a waste. Or there was nothing but waste. That was life. And then you come across this new ideology or mantra, as you called it. And it's like, oh man, I actually have control over my days and I get to be in charge of how productive I am. And I get to decide whether minutes and hours are spent building something and creating a better year from now or going backwards or just staying exactly the same. This is phenomenal. And it really is a decision to make every minute and every hour. And then eventually you just get into the mode you're in where you don't have to make those decisions. You're just getting after it.
Yeah. And then I think that energy starts to wear off on other people, and then they can borrow your belief, you know? So at some point in time, I borrowed someone's belief. I had a lot of great mentors and leaders and friends that believed in me before I believed in myself. And then I think once you rise up, you can pass that baton like a domino effect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to see you speak at Pantheon, which I've said many times was probably the best speaker I saw at Pantheon. There was some big competition up there, but man, you had I literally walked out. I was texting my wife who was at the Airbnb with the kids. And I texted my wife and I was like, I just saw Kathryn speak on the smallest stage she'll ever speak on again. And then, it was so good. Ellen Rohr was in the crowd and she just runs up, jumps on the stage, and then does a 15 Mississippi hug with Kathryn at the end. And I was like, and then there was a line for that hug. There's a lot of people that wanted that hug. I was like, oh, this is going to be a great episode.
Oh, that talk was, that was the largest stage that I've ever spoken on at that point in time. And I was so nervous. And I have watched the replay, the full recording. I didn't feel my nervousness come off before the talk. I think that you were in there beforehand, and I was trying to connect with the people walking in. A lot of people had told me they were coming, so I was trying to say hi and prepare myself for this. And I was super, super, super nervous. I remember walking up the steps on stage and I thought in my mind, I can't feel my feet. And a lot of my employees who were in the front row, they said it was really amazing, but we kept thinking you were going to fall off the edge. And I felt like I didn't, but I didn't. I thought I was going to fall off the edge too. I couldn't feel my feet. And I'm, very, I would say emotional. I'm a large speaker. So there's a lot of body movement that goes on in there. And I was just really nervous. So I'm just saying this to encourage everyone that you can have, what some people will say and thank you. I'm flattered and honored that you think I was one of the better speakers at Pantheon, because everyone's amazing and gives so much content and so much value at that conference. But if people are feeling like they have that much content and that much value to offer, but they're so nervous that they wouldn't even be able to feel their feet on the stage, that's okay. It's okay. You can do it, right? And Ellen Rohr is one of my very best friends. And when she ran up and gave me that hug, I could feel her chest against mine. And I said, oh my gosh, can you feel my heart beating? Because I can't feel it yet. I need to breathe. I felt like I hadn't breathed. And speaking in front of that many people, which maybe it will be the smallest stage I ever speak on, maybe not. It doesn't matter. Anywhere I can impact lives, I'm glad to be there. But it's okay if you feel so nervous, no matter what size the room is. If you feel like you have value and you feel like you have content to offer, you step it up and do your best. And it's going to be amazing.
Well, if you thought the crowd size at Pantheon was large, wait till the dozens and dozens of Waste No Day listeners get back to you with feedback. It's going to be epic. For sure.
We might be at 30 people listening by now, Kathryn. It's getting crazy. It's getting a little hard.
I'm ready.
Well, we're ready to hear it, Kathryn, but we always like to set the stage or give some context to the story of the guests that we're interviewing on any particular episode, because it helps anybody in the trades understand, where's your pathway coming from? What was that history? What got you into the trades? And what keeps you in the trade? So kind of give us the Kathryn Howard story. Give us the biopic, if you will, in a quick, short order.
I came back to the trades at the beginning of the pandemic when my family's company that's headquartered in Fresno, California, Lee's Air Plumbing and Heating, was having trouble staffing. I started a 24-hour support center in the country of Armenia at that time. And then I returned to Las Vegas, where I feel like I was kind of raised in HVAC. In Las Vegas, where I worked in the call center, I worked as a service manager. I worked in the field I worked in the field in sales. And shortly after that, I returned to my family's company headquartered in Fresno, California, and took over there. We have experienced extraordinary success this year, all credit due to the extraordinary, amazing, most valuable, incredible employees that ever existed. I just have the greatest team in the whole world, and we're going to the moon. It's really exciting. I'm super grateful for them. We are planning, very transparent with all of our employees, to take on a capital investor in 2025. We're very excited about that. And we're going to get the very best capital investor for the sustainability of our company so we can continue to provide these essential services to the communities that depend on us for the next 100 years. And so that we can also the longevity and quality of life for our employees, a capital partner that aligns with our values and will be able to provide our employees a paycheck for as long as they agree to trade 40 plus hours a week of their life to our organization. So we're really excited about that.
Incredible, for sure. And just really curious, Kathryn, did you spin a wheel or lose a bet that you were like, yeah, let's go to Armenia and start a service center? I'm just kind of curious where that came from. That's pretty wild and out of nowhere.
I was going through a divorce and I thought this country really isn't big enough for the both of us right now. So that's the honest truth. I don't know if I've ever talked about that publicly, but I told my brother I was going to go back to Armenia and live there. And he said, well, why can you do this for me? And I said, yeah, sure, for sure. And I had no intentions at that time of ever returning. I had taken off from Armenia and was splashing in the Persian Gulf in Dubai because I thought if I was on that side of the world, no one knew if Dubai, Armenia didn't really matter. I plugged into the computer and we used Service Titan and I could take phone calls and run a call center and a support center. So I was doing that. And that's when my brother did ask me to come back to Las Vegas and help in the call center, a business he was working with at that time.
Yeah, what a great story. And so when you were there, you were actually servicing for your brother?
Yes.
Okay.
I started a call center that now we ended up selling to Telecom Armenia, which is their national telecommunications company. And it's an organization called Service Hub, and they have quite a few agents now. And recently, one of the call center managers here in the U.S. asked me, how many agents were there when you got there? And I just started cracking up laughing. I said, lady, I was agent 0. I showed up in a country, I didn't speak the language, you know what I mean? We got an apartment, I connected the internet, I hand sewed the cubicles because they don't have cubicles there, and I found some people who spoke my language and I trained them to be CSRs, accountants, bookkeepers, and HR support for Lee's in Fresno. And then there were other contractors who asked to have similar employees, and it started to scale. It wasn't something that I was going to stick with there and be able to scale. So Telecom Armenia took it over and they're doing a fantastic job.
Great. And of course, your brother is Tom Howard. He's actually been on the show before. In fact, earlier this year, 2024, the January 15th episode, he talked to us about falling in love with the budget, which was a really fun episode.
It was really fun for Nate.
Like a ton of fun.
That was not fun for the rest of us, Kathryn. Nate loved it though. The one thing that he crushed and made fun. And a couple people in the Waste No Day Facebook group actually made t-shirts out of this and posted them in there. He said, if you were a crackhead, would you be tired to get up and get to work? And it was a great little bit that he did. And he ended it by saying, don't get out hustled by a crackhead. You're better than that. And people actually made shirts out of it.
Don't get out hustled by a crackhead.
We're going to have to release some Waste No Day crackhead shirts now.
Good advice, Tom.
Well, we're looking for some advice from you, Kathryn. And I know you're passionate about this subject, which is knowing your worth. And I kind of want to set stage there in terms of if somebody's passionate about a subject, there tends to be a reason or a rationale behind where that passion is coming from. And perhaps that reason is based upon a situation or a circumstance that they have either traveled through themselves or that they are seeing existing in the market or in the environment itself. So kind of set the stage for us in terms of like, where is the passion for knowing your worth coming from? Is it based upon your own personal experiences or observations you've had, or maybe, time with your brother? Where's this coming from, and why is it so passionate for you?
I think the answer to your question is it's a combination of both. And as you go through your journey in life, you kind of pick up, you need both. You need your past experiences to give you, your unique perspective on life, and you need people's borrowed belief to give you the step up to the next level. So I can pretty much break it down very quickly in terms that most people understand. We grew up very poor. We're raised by a single mother. And Tom and I kind of, for those of you who know my brother, we kind of took different paths. He turned and went under the water and was baptized and served a religious mission and went to college and did some really amazing things. And I, kind of turned the other way. I was 16 and pregnant long before it was a TV show. Dropped out of high school because back then, once you show you had to go. It wasn't like how it is now. My oldest son will be 22 years old next month, and I'm 38, so you can add that up. And, a life like that led to substance abuse and incarceration and all sorts of wild things. And I think that when you go through these things, starting from the very beginning, you always hear why did you turn out so amazing? It's like, oh, well, my parents were an alcoholic. And then sometimes you see someone spending life in prison and you're like, what happened? And they're like, well, my parents were an alcoholic. It can go both ways. At some point in time, you just have to take personal responsibility and be grateful for your prior experiences. Prison taught me a lot of good and bad things, made good and bad friends, all those kinds of things. But it's given me the strength to go through what I've gone through. And I've had then on the other side, like you said, have had so many amazing people in my life that said, we know the stigma attached to being a 5-time felon. We know the stigma attached to being a poor single mother. We know the stigma attached to being a high school dropout, but we like you anyways. And we think that you can do great things, and borrowing that belief to start doing great things. And then that gives you the opportunity to lend that belief to other people who have gone or are going through similar hardships, and letting them know that that's not the end for you. You can choose to rise up. I think winning is a choice and happiness is a strategy. And I hate to see winners lose. And just because, you've made some mistakes in your past, or you've had a rough upbringing, or you feel like you're losing hope, it's not the end for you, and you can turn it around and great things can happen. And I really, truly believe, and I'm on a mission, it's like a global takeover, that there's a pathway to prosperity for anyone who's willing to show up and work hard in the trades, regardless of your gender or the color of your skin or your criminal history or what country you were born in. Like home services, restricted trades like HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. They are skilled positions, just like doctors and lawyers. When was the last time that you heard somebody try to DIY and cast their leg when it broke? It doesn't happen because I tried so hard. I've been doing so well.
You're good. We're just going to leave that one tucked in.
It doesn't happen because it's a skilled position. Being a doctor is a skilled position, and people know they can't cast their leg on their own. People know that they can't install a water filtration system on their own and make sure that the water is going to be clean. It's a skilled trade, making sure that they have hot water when there's electric and gas components involved. That requires licensed professionals. making sure that you have heat in the winter so that you don't freeze to death and your pipes don't burst. That requires a skilled professional. And just because we are essential services, we're not a charity, and the value of our technicians is equal to those of doctors and lawyers, in my opinion. And you can be a technician in our industry, no matter if, what your gender is, your race is, your criminal history, or your country of origin. You just have to be willing to show up and work hard. Your value is very high here.
I love that passion, Kathryn, and I appreciate the direction you're going. And obviously, you've been around the country, you've been around around the world, you've been to stages like Pantheon, you've been in your business, and I'm sure many others. And you just continue to find people to the contrary of that belief in the trades. We have them at my shop. Brian probably has them at his. I'm sure you have a couple hanging out in the corners of your shop as well, who they just don't see it that way. All the skill in the world, all the knowledge, all the ability to fix and diagnose and repair and replace and plumb level and straighten wires and pipe everything in just as it's supposed to be, looking beautiful. And they don't respect themselves enough to bring value, self-esteem, like it's just a thing. Why? Why is that so prevalent in the trades?
I think that me and my life history and my past is very, very common in this industry. And I'm trying not to get emotional, but I believe that coming from those types of situations, society's judgment of us has maybe made us feel like we're not the most valuable humans on earth. And we don't have incomes like doctors and lawyers. And the trades isn't an honorable career, but that's simply not true.
Yeah, you are correct. And even more so in today's day and age, I believe, than ever, because the skilled trades has just really fallen out of favor in so many ways. 45 years ago, 50 years ago, like everybody could do a lot of different things with their hands. It was much more common practice and commonplace. And in today's day and age, the big push to college, the big push to, all those types of things. And there's merit in those areas, in certain areas. Certainly your STEM degrees and things like that have a lot of, you have to know what you're doing to make sure that you do it well. If you're going to build a bridge and people are going to drive across it, you better make sure that you know how to run calculations and everything, right? But there's just a lack of value assessed to knowing what to do with your hands and knowing how to do it well. And then in addition to that, being able to actually communicate to a homeowner what and how you are doing and why it should be done this way and in this manner. And so there's an additional layer there that is often even more a lost art, which is the ability to communicate. So it's one thing to know how to do the skill, how to do the trade, how to, use a level, which I'm sure Brian didn't even have one of those. But it's one thing to know how to do that. It's another thing to actually know how to talk to a homeowner and help them to understand the value of what you are bringing. When you're associating with different people at your shop or you're mingling with others in the trades in general, why do you also think that the trades is rather stunted when it comes to good communicators?
I think that the trades is getting better every day with their communication skills. I think that we're in a state of constant innovation and we're moving right along. I think that the sophistication of our industry is forcing this innovation on our operational and our communication and, the day-to-day way that we run our businesses. I was just talking to someone recently about HVAC, and there was a technician that if he came to a 35-year-old machine would take so much pride in the fact that he got it up and running before he would recommend replacement to the homeowner. And I knew that the reason why he felt that way was because he really had very high levels of integrity and he thought that what he was doing was truly in the best interest of the homeowner. And I think 20, 30, 40 years ago, when all they had were those R22 beast machines, that was in the best interest of the homeowner to fix that machine as long as you could, because replacing it wasn't going to offer increased efficiency on your energy bills. And energy wasn't so expensive back then. Nobody really cared about that. Making it an investment in a new piece of equipment was huge, huge. And there was no good reason to do it unless there was absolutely no way to fix it. Times have changed. Times have changed. The cost of energy is very, very, very high. And we know that certain things about the old machines were not good for the environment. People like increased levels of comfort with the new technologies that have come out in variable speeds with very high levels of efficiency to decrease the cost of energy. And these are superior products to a lot of the old products. I'm sure it can be argued either way, but there's a reason why our industry is innovating, why we're becoming more sophisticated, and why it's changing. And it's not always what's in the best interest of the customer to get a unit who has worn, failing, or failed components up and running again. There's a lot of good reasons why we should replace, and that could be in the best interest of the customer, and we should be always offering that when we're in the home. And I think once those technicians who truly believe that fixing it is in the best interest of the customer see the numbers, the hardcore numbers with the cost of electricity and the rising cost of repairs and the rising cost of service calls and how often we need to use these machines and how quickly they fail. And if they understand that because the industry is changing, that it's in the best interest of the customer to maybe make a larger purchase up front to save money down the road, I think that they'll change their minds and they'll communicate with our customers differently.
Okay, Kathryn. So I want to push into this a little bit because I know what you're saying. It sounds great. And I'm trying to juxtapose what you're saying with the other side of things, which is there's a certain amount of pride that comes for a tradesperson in terms of the aesthetic of what they do, right? It's plumb, it's level, it's perfectly spaced. It's like all these things. It's beautiful. They step back and they say, yeah, that's right. I did that. I made it look that way. And a lot of homeowners, like, they can't appreciate what goes into that. But even the most basic homeowner can look at something and say, I don't know what you did. I don't know what it took, but it looks really impressive. It looks really professional, right? So there's the aesthetic piece. All right, cool. I think that's a given. But then I think there's another level of confidence, security, and pride existing in the trades for people who can diagnose and fix the most complex machines, the most outdated 50-year-old things. They were able to find it. They know that technique. They know how to do this, that, and whatever that they don't even teach today anymore. Like it's so old school that it's not even brought back, but they have the skill, the knowledge, the ability to do that. That mindset, the one that values the fact that I figured it out, I fixed it, I was able to put A to Z together and make the machine work again. That pride stands a bit in contrast, but it might not be worth it for the homeowner. And so I think in my mind, I'm struggling to understand how can we teach know your value, know your worth, like believe in yourself, those types of things, if we're also saying, but don't always fix it because it's not always the best. You get what I'm saying? Like over here, celebrate the guy who can diagnose the 50-year-old system that there's only 3 of them in the entire county. And over here say, but why did you do that? Because wouldn't it be better for them to have another one? How are they supposed to find value in themselves if you're also saying, but don't value the skills that I think you take pride in?
I love technicians that can fix anything. They are some of my most valuable employees, and I'm grateful for all of the work that they do. And like you said, there's not very many of those machines left. So highly skilled technicians are learning the new technology, and they're learning how to diagnose and fix things that didn't exist on those old machines anymore. And that's the majority of what we're dealing with today. And I think technicians who find their value in being technically sound need to reposition themselves and learn the new technology and the new sophistication. And I think that they're going to do great things. I mean, I have lots of technicians who only fix things, at least. They're not responsible for producing revenue for us. And I need them and I love them and I honor them and I respect them. And I think they're absolutely amazing and some of our most valuable employees. But a lot of what they do every day is diagnosing and fixing brand new technology that's brand new to the market that we're figuring out and learning right alongside the manufacturers of the equipment. I think everyone in our industry can relate with that.
Yeah, and I think the auto industry has also endured a similar technological changeover. I mean, 40 years ago, or 50 years ago in 1970, whatever, most people could pop open the hood. They could replace whatever parts, like they could easily work on things. Like
you can't even name a part of a car.
They could replace their spark plugs. They could change their own oil. They could replace a battery. And there was actually room in the car to even do something like that. Mm-hmm. You open the hood of any modern day car, you're lucky if you can fit an arm in the engine compartment, much less understand where anything is located. And certainly the majority of America couldn't even tell you what a spark plug is or where the dipstick of their engine exists to even check the oil, right? So I think the auto industry and the mechanics have gone through the same thing where like there used to be this value inherent in kind of classic Americana that everybody can fix everything. And now it's gone completely computerized where like even mechanics who have 20 years experience, they just hook up to the ODP2 port and, it spits out what's wrong and then they know what to do. So again, like there's this evolution that's going through it as things become more computerized, as technology becomes more, just the boards on these new units are enormous and incredibly intricate and everything's going on. There is an element that strips away like the thinking component of it, like because eventually these machines will start diagnosing themselves. How do you still continue to preach value into an industry that is the diagnostic piece of it is slowly being stripped away, at least in HVAC? Plumbing and electrical, I think, are pretty far behind on that side simply because there's far more components that can't really be digitized. But on an HVAC, the units are going to be soon telling us like what's wrong before it even starts going wrong. So how do we continue to perpetuate the know your value, know your worth when the machine is getting smarter?
I think that the job is just changing. It's not going away, and it's given us an opportunity to increase our efficiencies. That's what technology does. We're early adopters of new heat pump and fit and the variable speed. We did that right away. We've installed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and it has changed the job of our technicians, but I think can be increasingly difficult. It's definitely still a skilled position. And I think we're still a long, long, long way from a whole home air conditioning system that's plug in and out and can diagnose and fix itself. And we don't need human element in technicians anymore. I think we're still very far away from that. I think that the sophistication and the new technology in our industry gives our technicians an opportunity to learn new things, to adapt to the new ways of doing things. And maybe with the increased technology that helps diagnose. I know it's not all accurate right now. We're learning alongside the manufacturers. I think they're far from diagnosing themselves, trying to still figure out what's what. But I think that that's giving people they can run more calls, they can service more people. And because of it's increasingly difficult, the demand for their service is still at an all-time high, and our skilled labor is at an all-time low. And we're going to have to make a market correction in our economy and pay these people more. So I think the value of our technician based on the market rate, how many people there are available to do the job, and what we have to pay them to do it and do it well is going to continue to go up until that correction is made and supply and demand meet each other in this country. So I think technicians should just focus on learning the new technology, adopting to the new structures and strategies that are in place to optimize their efficiencies so we can serve more customers, we can earn more money, and the value of their position increases. That's exciting to me.
I agree with you. And again, finding some solace for those of you listening in the auto field, like just because cars have gotten smarter doesn't mean that the repair bills have gotten cheaper, nor have paying the mechanics gotten, less valuable. In fact, I think quite the contrary. What it costs to fix a car today is considerably more than what it was 10 years ago, even if the car tells you what's wrong, because there's still value in the ability to go in and actually do the job, which most homeowners say, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't like touching it. I don't like getting shocked. I don't like, what could happen, what could go wrong. And that's where so much of this value is coming from. So like, as you think about what is the value, like what, how should a tradesperson think of themselves, Kathryn? Preach the gospel of like self-worth here to us in like when a plumber or an electrician or an HVAC tech is going into a home and they're kind of getting that like eye roll from the homeowner, like you're just a pair of hands. Like, what are they supposed to think? What are they supposed to say, even out loud sometimes when they're kind of feeling that disrespect from somebody?
You can swear. Go ahead.
If somebody's being disrespectful, screw them. I want to give them the time of day. Do your best to communicate what their problem is and what their options are for repair or replacement and move along with your life. However, a lot of times people believe what you believe. So my question to technicians is, what do you believe the value of your services are? Plumbing, HVAC, and electrical are restricted trades. They require licenses because if you do the work incorrectly, the penalty, the consequence is up to and including death. So that's why there's regulations around what we do. And that's what makes this a skilled trade. And right now, every single American I know uses running water, and we need clean water to survive. A major water main went down in the city of Atlanta, and because of the shortage of skilled plumbers able to fix it, there were 2.3 million people without running water for 2 days. And most people know, most plumbers especially know, the only thing worse than 2.3 million people without running water is if one of those water mains was to be contaminated and 2.3 million people would be at risk of death. That's how serious it is. And there are more people in the United States of America that use running water and need clean water to plumbers than there are people in our country who use Western medicine to doctors. But like I said earlier, when was the last time you went into the emergency room and you said, I don't like your price. I'd like the opinion of a second doctor. I'd like to get several estimates before you attend to my problem. I'd like different options for what we plan to do. Maybe I don't like this doctor. I'm going to go to the next one. And I know that you can do that with some things, but not in the case of an emergency. Not when it's negative 10 degrees outside and your furnace fails. You don't have those options. Just like when you're in the emergency room and you need the services of a skilled professional from a doctor. The medical industry has figured it out. They always charge us more than we want to pay. That's for sure. But we always have to figure out a way to pay it, whether it's through financing or savings or applying for assistance if that's the position that you're in. There's government programs to support different rebates, tax incentives, and low-income family help for HVAC and electricity and plumbing as well, because they're essential services. So the medical industry has figured it out. They charge the market price, what they need to charge for what they need to pay for the medical professionals, the nurses and doctors that provide those services to us. Their rate is very high because there's only a few of them who can do their work. And there's a high demand for their services, especially in the case of an emergency, and it's a skilled profession. So they charge a high price. They make a high wage. It's a market economy right there. So where are we at with plumbing and HVAC? Why aren't technicians making $250,000 to $2 million a year? Why not? We have the increased efficiencies and technologies to provide this pathway to prosperity for anyone who's willing to show up and work hard. They're valued just like a doctor or a lawyer. Why not? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. You can come and you can learn these trades. It doesn't take 9 years of school. You don't need to go into debt to do it. There are plenty of amazing contractors who have on-the-job training. That's facts right there. If the company you're applying for doesn't have it, go find a company who does. There's a pathway to prosperity here for everyone. The same wages that doctors make based off what they do. We need to change the consumer perception on a national level of the cost of our services because skilled labor is at a low, demand is at a high. We have to charge more and make that market correction. Once we do that, we'll get more technicians in the field. We'll get a higher caliber of employee because just like the auto industry, I was thinking of this while you were saying this and it was blowing my mind. Think about the time it takes to diagnose. Now that the sophistication of the technology has been put in place, you know the problem right away. And you can offer solutions to your customer for repairs or replacements of whatever the problem is. You know what they used to have to do to diagnose an auto? They'd have to be like, oh, I think this is the problem, and then go drive it around for a day and see how it reacted. And then that wasn't the problem. So then they had to go drive it around for another day and see how the next problem reacted. And then they tried this and you'd take it home and it would die on the highway after you already gave them, a few $1,000s to fix your car because that wasn't the problem. And they told you that. They weren't sure because you had to take step-by-step repairs and see how it went. And now you just plug it in and they tell you what the problem is and then you just fix it. Oh man, bummer.
I love it, Kathryn. And two things that are crossing my mind right now, and they both have to do with the medical industry. The first is, how do we change the perception of Americans or homeowners in general? Because while I do think most people think and acknowledge that it costs a lot of money to go to the doctor because they've experienced it their entire life, right? Every time they go to the doctor, it's 30 minutes in the waiting room. The doctor sees you for 5 minutes and they charge you $130 going out the door just for like a checkup, right? For a cold. Not to mention, like, if you ever actually go to the ER or an ambulance ride or like any specialty or anything like that, everybody knows from birth on up, the whole way along the line, it is expensive to get medically treated in this country. Maybe part of the problem is that for home repairs, people don't start experiencing that until 20, 25, 30, 35 years old. I don't know if that's part of the problem, but how do we change the perception of the homeowner? Because a lot of these homeowners say, do you want to charge what? Are you kidding me? Like, it's just the shock and awe contest, as opposed to like, how many times do you do that in the doctor's office? You just know it's coming. So how do we change that perception?
Well, the medical industry has figured it out, so they're already there. And for us, we're going to have to raise the cost of our services. And it's already happening. We're already seeing it happen. And what's most important when we raise the cost of our services is that we provide the adequate value behind those services. I believe I have the best team in the whole world. I believe I employ the greatest technicians on earth. No one can tell me any different. But when we service our customers, we stand behind that. We have more than 100 technicians on the road. We answer our phones 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are licensed, bonded, insured. We commit to do the job right and do it well every single time with 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Everyone in our market knows you don't call Lee's to cut corners. And you don't call Lee's if you want a cheap price. You call Lee's when you want quality work. And most of our customers, their homes are their largest investment, and they want to make sure that the work is done right. They are willing to pay a premium price because we provide a premium value. And as contractors increase their values by things like sophistication and technology that we use to optimize our efficiencies, just like think in the auto industry. Now that you don't have to drive the car around all day to see if there's a problem, you just plug it in and you know what to do. How many more cars can you fix in a day? That just made the auto mechanic so much more valuable because they can do 5 times as much work to make 5 times as much money. And if you're a business owner, you're making 5 times as much money. And if you're not passing those wage increases on to those technicians, you're a fool and someone's going to come along and put you out of business. That's my personal opinion, because we have to increase the value of that position so we have more technicians so that we can service more customers and communities have these services as long as they need them. So I think as business owners adopt new technology, increase their efficiencies, raise the value of the technician because they're able to do more work at a higher rate, I think that we're going to automatically experience that uptick in our price. Contractors are going to have to raise their prices to meet the ongoing needs of marketing and lead generation, of paying these technicians, and all the other things, our strategic partners, cost of materials, they've all gone up. So you have to raise your prices to stay in business, and raising the wage of the technician is going to be part of that movement. And people who don't raise their prices, we're already seeing it happen in record numbers across the country. Their revenue is not exceeding their expenses. And you can only do that so long before you have to close your doors. And when you have to close your doors, you fail as a business owner to provide jobs for the people who depend on you. And you fail as a business owner to provide the services for the consumers who depend on you. And so if you're not raising your prices, I'm starting to question your integrity.
Okay, so I hear you, and I do hope people raise their prices, and I do hope that professionals get paid more. But this brings me to the second thing that was crossing my mind, which is when it comes to the medical industry, I don't know if they all get together in a dark room somewhere and they fix the price, but it's pretty much a lot of the same price all the way around wherever you go. But in the home services industry, there seems to always be somebody willing to cut the corner or do it for less, or they don't value themselves as much and it's much cheaper. Now, in the medical industry, that's typically not the case unless you're dealing with Brian's vasectomy doctor. But in the home services industry, it's far more like there's a wide variety of people who do the job. And to be frank, Kathryn, there are people who do a very good job for a very cheap price. And, in my opinion, they're undervaluing their service. Like they have not come to the conclusion, probably because of self-doubt or just like a low self-esteem of what they're doing, that they could and should charge more, but they don't. And so we have this discrepancy between plumber A, who has very low overhead and doesn't have a high value of his ability to do things, is charging, $40 an hour, and Lee's, which is charging the equivalent of $400 an hour or something like that. And they're both doing the job. Now, we can have a conversation about everything that goes behind it and what you stand for and the guarantees and everything. And yes, that of course that's how we would counteract that type of a price discrepancy. But in the homeowner's eyes, there is just this A to Z catalog of pricing out there that doesn't seem to exist in the medical industry. And so how do we deal with that? Because the homeowner, and to some degree, I think that's why the homeowners continue to say, I'm going to look around. I'm going to check around. I Googled this and it said it should only cost this much. My buddy got it done for this much, et cetera, et cetera. And like, it just keeps coming up and coming up. And I think to some degree that keeps beating down the know your worth concept in so many home services professionals out there, because they hear this podcast and they say, I am absolutely worth it. I am absolutely going to go in there and charge what I'm worth. And I'm going to be smiling while I do it because they're getting me and they deserve it. And they knock on that door and they quote them the price and they say, are you kidding me? That's insane. My cousin's neighbor's nephew could do it for half of that. Right. And it's just like the wind gets sucked out of the sails and, you walk away defeated. How do we counteract that entire ecosystem that's going on there where there is such a discrepancy in the trades in terms of what something is actually worth?
Well, Chuck in a truck, I love you too. And they're going to be out there probably forever. And I think that those people are entrepreneurial mindsets, and I honor them for what they do, and their ability to serve people is very, very, very small. So Chuck in a truck can only serve as many customers as he can get to for $40 an hour. And I believe that as sophistication increases and technology increases in our industry, that doing those kinds of jobs are going to be even more difficult because their failure to diagnose the higher end and higher efficiency equipment. But, there's some people who really need the price break that will accept the lower quality. And I understand that. And I love it for those people. But there are a lot of people who really want the job done well. They want it permitted. They want it inspected for their insurance. They want a satisfaction guaranteed that if something happens in the middle of the night, if someone's going to pick up the phone and a skilled professional is going to be there on site to take care of their property as if it was their own. And all of that comes at a cost. And there's a lot of people that are willing to pay it. Just because you walk into someone who can't afford your price, it doesn't change the value of your services. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with those customers that choose to go with Chuck in a truck, or that there's anything wrong with Chuck in a truck. People need him. He's not going to be able to service very many people, and good for him. I hope that at the end of the day, his revenues exceed his expenses and he's able to put food on the table for his family. And at the end of the day, my revenue is going to exceed my expenses, and I'm going to put food on the table for over 300 families. Over 300 families. And that's the value of my people. And we're going to be able to serve hundreds of thousands of customers who need us. And so we're great. And Chuck in a Truck is great. And you determine your value and charge the right price. And the right price is probably even more than you think it is, because there are people who recognize the value of getting it done well.
I think that's such a profound answer, Kathryn. I'm glad you brought that up. Just because somebody is not able to afford the price that you are charging does not devalue your service, your knowledge, your skill, your company, your offering to the environment, right? I mean, there's lawyers that charge $300 an hour and there's lawyers that charge $70 an hour, okay? And I don't think the $300 an hour lawyers are really scratching their head saying, well, gee willikers, I'm not sure if I'm worth it because, Tommy Two Tones over here will do it for $70 an hour. No, the $300 an hour lawyer is charging that because there's a market that is willing to pay for that service. But it does come with the expectation that a $300 an hour lawyer is going to get the job done, and they're going to get it done right. I think that's kind of the same concept that ties into this home services professional. We have all different types of people that listen to this podcast. I'm sure there's, 3-4 man bands out there. I don't know if there's any single guys out there, but that's cool. And I'm sure there's some large entities that are listening to this as well. And there's certainly no price fixing amongst those companies at any stretch of the imagination. And that's okay. Like, what you are charging, you need to believe that you're worth it. And if they say no, you need to have the abundance mentality, which we've talked about on here, the abundance mentality to say, that's okay. I understand. There's somebody else who will, right?
Like the fourth no, though, not the first one. Kathryn, while we're on the topic of the technician knowing their worth and their company's worth and their value, you said something really interesting that Nate and I picked up on Wiser Wednesday when you blessed us with your presence and your wisdom on Wiser Wednesday. For those who aren't on Wiser Wednesday, it's a weekly training in the Waste No Day Facebook group. People like Kathryn come on and just rock the house like she did last week. But you said you really went in on how important the technician is and how the technician is the all-star in your team and every team, and that nobody gets a paycheck until the technician shows up and does his or her job. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit? Because it got our people fired up on that call.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I love technicians, and I do truly believe they are our most valuable employees, that no one has a job unless our technicians show up and perform. I run a tech call every single morning with my entire platform. More than 100 technicians get on at 7:30 Pacific every single day. And unless I'm literally in the air flying, which I try to avoid at all costs at that hour, I am on this call no matter where I am in the world, because I just love seeing their faces. I love hearing about what they're doing. And I go through the top 10 in sales. I go through the top in technician generated leads. If you sold a membership for my organization, I call you out on that call every single day. I do it every single day just for the day before, because anyone can have a great day. And I try to recognize my technicians every single day. I really believe that my executive staff, that it's our job to create opportunity for everyone who works for us. My operations managers are servant leaders, and my technicians are the stars of the show. Some of them, like I said, they don't produce revenue. They fix things, and I love them. I honor them. I respect them, and they make a great hourly wage. I do have commission-based technicians who are responsible for producing revenue, and they do so at very extraordinary rates. They're amazing. We have technicians who are making more than $1 million. We have handfuls of technicians making $500,000, and more technicians that I can count that are well into the six figures, over $200,000 annually. I'm talking HVAC installers making anywhere from $150,000 up $300,000 a year, based off the hard work and dedication that they show our organization. And then that's everything. That's everything. And when the technician shows up and performs, and when the technician has received the purpose that is greater than himself, and the love from the organization that supports him, and a pathway to provide optimal service for the customers, and knowing as a technician, knowing that your company stands behind what you're offering, and we're going to deliver on that closed estimate, and we're going to give world-class service every single time, really gives them the confidence. But I value my technicians so hard that at 7:30 in the morning, I tell them every day how grateful I am for them. Every day how grateful the whole staff is for them. Every day I look them in their eyes on that Zoom and thank them for their hard work and dedication to our organization, and remind them that they are our most valuable employees, and that as the CEO, I have absolutely nothing better to do than show up at 7:30 every single day and thank them. Thank them for everything that they do. And I think when more business owners recognize the value of the technicians and start making business decisions based off optimizing the opportunity for them to perform and increasing their wages based off that performance, we are going to see change in our industry.
And you deliver a lot to the technician for sure. But on the other side of that, I know not anybody can work for Lee's and serve under you. What do you expect out of those technicians, both on the sales side and the service side?
I expect them to be high performers. It doesn't matter what position you work on if you're on our team. We are A players only. High performance is a lifestyle. If you're doing something that's distracting you from being the optimum version of yourself, you can't work for us. That's just that. We are go to bed early, wake up early, show up every single day. There are no days to waste. We work every single day that ends in Y. We are high performers across the board, from the CSRs and our call center that's led by Carrie Broderick, our sales coordinator, Sunny Shute. We have an amazing team on that end. Our operations manager, our plumbing department is led by Ben Nuno. In Fresno, our HVAC install is Justin Howard. HVAC service is Alfredo Ramirez. My operations COO is Damon Broggeman. I have the greatest team on earth running leads. We have a director of marketing named Jose Solis. Like, I cannot say enough about the people that show up every single day and make things happen for us. And that's what provides the pathway for our technicians in the field to feel fully supported. We're just high performers across the board. The technicians know if you're just showing up for a paycheck, you can't work for us. If you take more than you give from my organization, you can't work for us. I'll say it, I can say it, I can repeat it in my sleep. I have a legal obligation to act in the fiduciary best interests of the shareholders of our business, many of whom are employees, right? And a moral obligation to the children of the people who trade 40 plus hours a week to my organization in exchange for a paycheck that I can continue to provide that. So if you take more than you give from us, I love you, I honor you, I respect you, but you've got to go, and you've got to go now. It's a responsibility that I take very seriously. So you've got to show up and you've got to perform in our place, or you've got to go, and you'll be removed without hesitation very, very quickly. We have a standard performance. People rise to the standard that you hold them to. We're a high performing organization, and we have a culture that doesn't support laziness. You will be called out by the group of your peers if you're not performing. And I love that for us. And I think that it creates an opportunity to thrive for anyone who's willing to show up and work hard.
So good, Kathryn. And as we're kind of contemplating that point there, we do have managers and owners who listen to this show as well. And like, obviously you're dialed in on this thing. You're rattling off names of people in your organization. You're getting on calls. You're looking forward to speaking to the technicians, and like, you're putting and showering so much love upon them. What are some practical ways that people in leadership who are listening to this podcast can embody the whole know your worth concept to the front line, to make sure that they're, if they're getting beat up in the home, they can come back to the home at the office and get a little bit of life pumped back into them? What are some practical applications of that leaders can be speaking life into their teams?
Have a high performance standard. Like I said, people rise to the standard that you hold them to. You've got to have that standard first. You've got to be consistent. You've got to be learning. You've got to be working harder than anyone else. You've got to be showing up. And then once you have high performers, it makes it really easy to recognize that every single person who works for you is better at their job than you are. Every single person that works for me is better at their job than I would be at their job. I'm pretty good at a lot of them, but I've got A players across the board. And that gives me such a spirit of gratitude. So I think if you feel like people aren't high performers, that's where the negative mindset is coming in from. But as an entrepreneur, you've got to recognize that you need different characters in each seat on the bus, and they might not all be your personal cup of tea. And that's okay, especially people who are high performance in sales. They're usually arrogant. They don't take no for an answer, even if it's you, which is the good thing when it's the customer. But then a manager can't stand it. You're going to need to get over that if you manage high performance salespeople. A players want pressure. They like pressure. Apply pressure. B players, they like credit. C players are just lazy. That's my opinion anyways. But once you raise that standard to those A players, you're going to have nothing but gratitude for their work and what they're doing and what they're contributing and what we're doing. We just ran through the numbers today. We're trending up in October, and with our recent acquisitions, it's a very good chance we'll hit between $7.5 and $8 million this October. October is one of our hardest months. And last year as an organization, we only did $34 million all year. Crazy, right? It's no thanks to me. It's all thanks to this incredible team that I have. And I'm so grateful for them. And I invest in them regularly for any type of training. We go to events. We rolled into Pantheon 22 deep. We go to the Service Titan trainings, the Toolbox Live events. We invest in new technology and training at every single level and department within our business, because that's what people who are A players want to do, constantly improve and become the best versions of themselves. And that's what my people have done. And I'm so grateful for it. And we just continue to grow and thrive. And these people are just fueling this rocket ship to the moon. And as business owners, you've got to hold that standard up here. You've got to be up here. And when you're up here and you start demanding that people rise up and giving them the tools, a lot of people, a lot of your employees are doing the best they can with what they know and what they have. Increase their knowledge, show them what's possible, and get them the education that they need. Once they know more and they have the tools to catapult up, a lot of your people will. There are more great leaders than think that they're great leaders. They just need a purpose greater than themselves. You can give them that purpose as a business owner.
Truly inspirational, Kathryn. It's been so good to have you on here on this episode. If people are interested in getting more of Kathryn Howard or learning more about what you're doing at Lee's, or just kind of, talking to you about these concepts, even sharing their own stories or learning more about yours, where's a good place to connect with you?
Okay, so I'm not totally grown up all yet. So a great place to connect with me is on Facebook. My name is Kathryn Elizabeth. No last name. I've had a few husbands. I'm just leaving it off. Kathryn Elizabeth on Facebook.
Just waiting for that new last name to show up.
The variety is the spice of life. I'm keeping my options open. And on Instagram, I am Kathryn, KATHRYN _Elizabeth 28. We also, my brother and I, have a podcast and an acquisition guy talking about some of the work we do with mergers and acquisitions, and that's howarddeals.com. I think that's like the best ways to get a hold of me. Well, don't call the office. That's been a new phenomenon that we're experiencing. People calling the office looking for us, and I need those CSR lines available.
So she hasn't been here in 8 weeks. Why are you calling?
No, Kathryn here. We don't have a Kathryn.
Well, this is great, Kathryn. And I want to wrap up on this concept here. So earlier in the show, you used the phrase a number of times saying borrow somebody else's belief. And I want you to go into that and explain what that means. But I was hoping that perhaps you could share a story or maybe an example of somebody specifically in your life whom chose to invest in you in one way or another, that you were able to borrow their belief. And then by proxy, those who are listening to this podcast might find some solace, some hope, and maybe even some own belief in their lives and their opportunities and what they're doing by hearing your story.
That is a great one. And I'm trying to think of a really good example. I have so many that I could rattle off. Like, I've had the full support and love and credibility of my brother, Tom Howard, behind me this entire time. I've had a lot of people, any manager that's given me a promotion, every, company that's offered me a job. I am grateful. But okay, I've got a good one. One of my dear friends, her name is Carrie Kelch, and she is the owner of A+ Garage Doors out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I met her last year at Pantheon 2023 in Orlando, Florida, and quickly found out that she was, I believe, the largest at that time, if not one of the largest sole woman-owned trades business in the whole country. And that was shortly, just months after my very first event, which was Vertical Track in 2022. It was in October in Phoenix, when I realized that there was a shortage of women in our workforce, and maybe we could do something about
Nate just
that.
texted me that there's way too many. Look, I don't condone. I'm just reading a text message here, Kathy. He said there's way too many.
Look at, you're a pot stirrer or what, Brian? I'm a pot stirrer as well. So I had realized that, and I had at that time made a commitment that maybe I could do something for women. I think I can do something for anyone who's willing to show up and work hard now. But at that time, I was specifically thinking about women like myself. And when I met Carrie and she told me that she had had this business that does over $30 million in revenue, and she had had it since 2006, and that it belonged to her, and started to learn that she had grown the operations and done different things. That was the first time that I had met a woman that had done all of those things and grown a successful business that was valued in the 9 figures. And for me, it really made me believe, like, okay, I can do this. And there's a saying in the WNBA, they say, if I can see her, I can be her. And I had an opportunity to talk to Gary Vee. And when I had asked him, how can I attract more women into the trades? He said, you have to expose the ones who are already here. So meeting Carrie Kelsch and seeing her beautiful mansion up on the hill and getting to talk about business with her and celebrating the wins of acquiring massive wealth as a woman in this industry gave me the belief that I could take similar steps and push forward, and who knew what the possibilities would be. Never in a million years, probably until about 60 days ago, could you convince me that I'd be running an organization that completes over $100 million annually in revenue. And in 2025, we will blow past 100 million in revenue. We'll be way, way, way up there, way more than that before we take on a capital investor next year. And I think without meeting other people who are doing similar things and taking similar risks, I may not have believed that it was possible for someone who looked like me.
Good words to end on there, Kathryn. We appreciate the challenge, not only to the women into the trade, but all people in the trades, to know your worth, know your value, and believe in that. Kathryn Howard, it's been a joy and a pleasure to have you on the show today. And we appreciate you coming on and bringing some of that passion to our listeners.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.